Wasn't that film a work of art in itself? Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the very talented writer-director of the film, Lasse Hallström, and his beautiful and talented wife as the elder Helma, Lena Olin. You have no idea how fitting that film is here in Sedona as an art and spiritual community. It was the perfect opening night film. Thank you and welcome, welcome. I understand you just came back from Sweden recently, and we're really happy that you could join us.
Thank you.
Here in Sedona, your first time, I think, right?
Yes.
First time in Sedona.
Yes.
So welcome. We're very happy to have you here.
Thank you.
So I'm going to fire the first question, and then I'm going to go out to the audience, and we're going to take questions from the audience. But I want to ask you, Lasse, what was the inspiration for this film? And what kind of pressure is it to get it right when it's based on something so historical?
It started, it was an odd start because I was planning to make a film about UFOs. So
Even more fitting in Sedona.
So I studied that subject matter and did research on that, and that study really opened my mind to spiritual things, because there is a really weird connection between what's flying up there and spiritual things. If you look into that, it's fascinating. So it opened my mind to other spiritual stories. And Lena had seen a film on a plane that was called Personal Shopper, right? And there was a mention of a Swedish painter by this name, and we started to talk about her, and I started reading about her and got hooked, and because I felt that her philosophy was interesting and fascinating. Not so much to start with her paintings. So that's how it started.
And how long was this process, from the time you started that process to what we're seeing tonight? When did you start that?
This was 3.5, 4 years ago, and I played around with that story, with the script, for off and on for 3 years, trying to find money to shoot it in Swedish, in Sweden, but we couldn't, and Viaplay saved us. If you do this in English, we'll pay for the whole thing.
Oh.
So that's
interesting.
So that's why they speak English.
And let's talk about the casting, your two leading ladies. Your daughter, Tora, who was exceptional, by the way, as the younger Helma. And, of course, the very talented Lena as the elder Helma. Always wonderful. Was that a conscious decision from the start?
Yes.
Yes.
It was pretty much, it came hand in hand, the idea of working with the two of them and the Helma story.
Nice.
Yes.
And what's it like then going home after a day on the set? Maybe Lena should answer that question.
Well, it was so interesting to because I was so curious. So I actually hung out on set much more than I normally would. I wouldn't come to set, I think, at all if you're working, and I'm not. So it was fun for Tora and I to figure out and get to know Helma. And Tora sat down on a floor in her apartment in New York and just went through the script so many times and studied everything she could. And I did by myself. And then we all got together and started talking about the script and what we felt that Helma needed to do and how she would, and that was it was during the pandemic actually, so that was such an amazing time for us to really prepare to start shooting.
There was such a beautiful balance of vulnerability and strength in both the younger Helma and the older Helma. Did that evolve through your studies? Did it evolve on set? Did you intend that from the start?
I think so. We talked a lot about her because she's such a genius. She's such a brilliant person, and And then we tried to find her flaws, because brilliant people are sometimes not so easy to be around all the time. And she's so stubborn, and she wants to do it her way, which she should, because she had seen something that she needed the world to see. And I think it was really important to us to make her impossible at the same time. Right. Yeah.
And Anna was such a brilliant cast. She was brilliant. How did you find that wonderful actress that did Anna?
I'm happy to say that. That was Mel Churcher, our casting.
Oh,
no, not the casting director. She was a voice
Dialect
coach. So I asked her about, just took a chance on asking her if she knew any young kids. And she had studied with her, or helped her a little bit with a taping of a monologue. And she hadn't finished school yet, so I think she finished this spring. So
she was
I was
brilliant.
lucky to get her.
Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go out in the audience and take this around, but can you tell us about the graphics and the beautiful visuals that were created? Did you have a lot to do with that? Did you have someone that, the stunning visuals that took, but not only with the art, but even with the dream sequences and things, the flashbacks? Talk about that.
Yep. I like the lighting, the natural lighting in most scenes. Then, of course, we took off with her paintings and used them as, I don't know if you could sense that there was a tunnel in the end there that she was going through, but that's details of a painting. So, no, it's a very clever DP, a female DP, Ragnar Jorming, and her gaffer, who's also very talented. And they worked really well together.
Well, it was absolutely brilliant. Like I said, it was a work of art in itself, the film. Someone have a question right here, I thought.
That was brilliant. Can you comment on her obsession about food?
I think for Tora and I, that became such an important part of her, because she so wanted to get in contact with something higher. And when she got that information, I think she was very much raised by herself and very much as a boy when she grew up, and she had a huge appetite. And I think it's kind of clear at the, the meals with the family. She's like a guy, the way she carries herself and the way she eats. And then they got this instruction from the higher masters that you're supposed to not eat meat, you're supposed to not, for your soul to get in contact with something else. And I think that was very hard for Helma, and I think she tried to starve herself a little bit to get in contact with something higher, but she was always starving and always hungry, and she loved toast. And I think that was such a sweet and relatable side of her. So for someone who doesn't eat enough, you're always thinking of food and you're always hungry. So I think that was a very natural and relatable side of Helma.
Thank you so much for a wonderful transposition back to my Swedish background. I was raised in the most Swedish part of this country. I sharpened my teeth in college on Ingmar Bergman, which this movie reminded me of in many ways, not the least of which was the female characters that you were playing. I was curious about two things. Did the Helma character solve a spiritual problem for you personally in an artistic way? Because it seemed like she was doing battle between her heart and her mind. And the other part was unexpected, but you used the divine community of women all the way through the film to carry the transformation through her art form. I thought that was just magnificent. Thank you.
Yeah, this sticks to a true story. They were these 5 women that stuck together and actually worked together on these big paintings. So they're called the 5, and there was a group of women that met every Friday to pray and had ceremonies and work together. So it was a wonderful time to study for me. Not so wonderful for these women. They formed a very tight group, isolating themselves from as you could tell, as we all know, to be a woman in those days was different, challenging. And it's amazing how she stood up to the pressures around her and dared to stick to her art and create those things that she did with all the powers that were against her.
It was also amazing to watch the actors that play the five, and the way they created such a bond, and they became a very tight-knit group, and they were extremely supportive of each other. And a lot of them had filmed more, and a few of them hadn't filmed much at all. And the loyalty and what they had in that group was really fascinating and wonderful to watch.
And I think it really helped that we had a medium that helped us get into the mood. And they gathered with him, and I think there was some spiritual connections there with maybe with Helma herself. And I'm laughing because it's true, so I need to laugh just to cover up for it. But she actually connected with this medium and talked to us a little bit. This sounds weird to most people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, we said when we drove, because we haven't been here before, and we said when we drove from the airport, we started reading up on Sedona. We said, this is the perfect place to show this film. It's amazing to be here. We're so grateful.
Thank you so much for this beautiful film. I was so moved. And the passion that emanated from both you and your daughter as well, when you played the part, I was in her passion. I felt her passion so fully. And it was very flawless between the two of you and the ages. It was just beautiful. And one of the things I noticed is that all of the elements, the water, the light number one, the water, the mud, the dirt, the earth, the air, you had all of the elements. And so I felt like a swirl, just like her paintings, of the elements surrounding her and feeding her. And it was just beautiful. So it's more of a comment than a question. But did you consider those elements as a balance in the film?
When I learned that the grandfather had been doing his research, going down the water as she was doing, looking up the heavens, I couldn't resist connecting them and showing what a wonderful connection it is between this sea captain, seafarer, who actually draw maps over the waters and the grund, vad heter det? What's that in English? Never mind. So, yeah, I played around with that visually, for sure.
First, I just have to say I'm a huge Lena Olin fan, and I saw Unbearable 15 times. I love that film.
Thank you. Thank you so
And
much.
it's a pleasure to have you in Sedona. And one of the things I really appreciated, because we've seen with Camille Claudel and Angel at My Table, so many artist women that then are portrayed as having gone insane and everything becomes tragic, and then that's how we leave it. And you could have done that, and you didn't. You know, it's very uplifting, so I appreciate that. Wonderful. And the other thing I want to say is, or ask is, it's so painterly and so layered, and these shots where you were spinning up out of the room and out over the village, or there's one in the snow near the end where she's walking on the street, and it almost feels animated or something. You did so many beautiful transitions. It's like layer after layer. And I wonder if those layers are with you at the very beginning, or if that's kind of in the process that they come to you and in post-production, and, you know, because I can imagine just like a filmmaker from the beginning thinking that they could do anything like that. You've just intimidated everybody, you know. But I just wonder with your process that, yeah.
Part of the attraction to the project was that I could have some visual fun and freedom. And most of that was storyboarded, but there were some additional things that I decided to use real journal footage or archive footage for the backdrop of Stockholm, because I have a problem with, or usually when I see a film with the extras and that you try to fake it, the Stockholm streets, I don't buy it. Now, the quality of that on a big screen is not what one had hoped for. So you have to be a little accepting of it's a challenge a little bit to do this technically, but I was hell-bent on not doing it on stage and doing it with extras. But most of that was also the challenge of how do I tell the story? Can I tell not only about her whole life, but tell about the grandfather and the future with Guggenheim? So I decided to tell it all, which is, I think, not in fashion really. It's to me, it's not. It's an epic of her life, about her life. So, but that was another challenge. How do I tell this? How do I tell the whole life story in 2 hours?
Well, and to that point, she was, of course, unknown here until 4 years ago, 5 years ago. What did you have historical record to really explore and understand her character? Is there much available in Sweden in Swedish, or did you have to invent
read
a
all
lot
the
of it?
books that were available. There's a lot written about her, and she'd burnt all her letters and all her private documents. So there's a lot that is lost, but they've been doing a lot of research on her in the last couple of years. So there's a lot of personal details still surfacing. So it's based on that. So have we faked anything?
I think also the family was supportive of
Yes.
you know, and showed you the place where she grew up, the place where she painted, where she built the big house where the ladies got together and created so much. And details that different parts of the family, it's like memory is weird, but I think you gathered a lot of details from different family members and how they saw her, and the little boy in the end who counts with the dying Helma, he's alive, and he was very helpful, I think, during this process. And you were very thorough. And there's a book by Julia Faust, and you collaborated a lot with her too. But her books that she wrote, some of it she burnt, probably the interesting stuff that we wanted to know about of her personal life. But she was her little books and her writing and I don't think anyone has read it all, because it's just overwhelming, everything that was found in that attic where her paintings were intact. And we used to live across the street in Stockholm, when we still lived in Stockholm. We used to live across the street from that building where her paintings were hidden. So it's very interesting how it felt like Helma came to us, actually. And when Tora and I went to Stockholm to pick up an award for Helma in Stockholm, which we were very excited about, and Lasse stayed in New York, because we had very young dogs, so he stayed and took care of the dogs. And Tora and I went to Stockholm, and the night we arrived, there was a full moon, and around the moon was a beautiful rainbow. And that's something that's very rare, and it has to do with the humidity in the air, but it doesn't happen a lot. And when we went to dinner and we walked back to the hotel, we were, "Hi, Helma." We know, it's exciting, right?
So I'm curious about your anthroposophical tones in here with Rudolf Steiner. Was that something that you had an interest in? Are you anthroposophists, or was that brought in as a result of researching Hilma and her
It's
interests?
a result of the research in books and research through Benny Rosenqvist's medium. We actually got some information that confirmed what we had read between the lines about the relation, that it was a strained one, and that she was obsessed with getting his approval throughout her life and never really got it. He wanted to have this secret to himself, it seemed. So it's I think, a true perspective on the story.
And it was hard too, but I think sometimes people tend to get obsessed with getting approval from one person, and it was somewhat. But then when we started working on it, it wasn't that. It felt right that she would, we understood that she had this. He needs to, because she felt that he has seen what I have seen, and he needs to tell me that he has seen it. Because obviously she got fascinated. Anthroposophy, how do you say that in Swedish? Anthroposophy. It's extraordinary. It's wonderful. But I think he, as a person, had a hard time acknowledging that a little woman from Sweden had seen something that he was so. I think he was fascinated by her, but he refused to give her what she needed from him, which would have been, I understand. I've seen it. You're amazing. And she never got that from him. But she got it from us now, today, which is so fantastic.
So actually, the beautiful Lena answered one of my questions, which was the family history, and did you all collaborate at all with them? So you answered that, so now I'm going to go to your collaborative work. Sir, your work has been such an inspiration for me. And I want to know if there's any predeterminate factors that are in each of your works that drive you to do specific projects as a writer and or director.
I don't think I heard much of that.
Is there something in your varied work, she's a fan of your varied work, is there something that drives you, either as a writer or director, to specific determinants to take that on as a director or writer?
I'm attracted to a true story. Truth in general, it seems to be, I am driven to portray real people and go with where a character takes the story, and not so much telling the story per se. I'm just interested in observing behavior of human beings and interactions and interrelations. That's like my obsession. Performance, I'm really fascinated by performance and wanting to make it as authentic as possible. If there's a chance to do it, if a story sets out to be real or authentic, I want performances to be as real as possible. So I work a lot with not so much directing, but improvising and a lot of takes, and do whatever it takes to create things that come alive. That's my ambition. That's what drives me, really. So it's not so much storytelling as looking at people.
Question right back over here.
Your music soundtrack was magnificent on this. It almost seemed like you had an antique piano in there that was another character in the story. It played such a prominent role. And I would love you to speak to your thoughts about the composition of the music and the use of antique instruments. And the piano, for instance, sounded like it was recorded from back in the room. So you weren't just hearing the piano. you were hearing the environment of the piano.
I think he mixed Johnny Ekstrand. He started out as he was a sound sound engineer, so he did sound effects. So he's fascinated by the sounds of instruments. He bought an old organ that used to be a small organ that was used on ships in the 1800s, and he mixed that with a piano sound. And he does a lot of weird experiments with mixing sounds. So that's probably what you heard there. And he filtered things to water, he did really weird stuff. I wasn't there for all of it, but he's obsessed with effects of music, and the effect of music, and the different sounds of different instruments. How do I put that? Yeah.
Question right here.
Hi, I'm a makeup artist, and I'm actually here with Cathedral Collective, who's doing a documentary on the lovely chefs we saw earlier in the evening. And as a makeup artist, my question to you is, what role did hair and makeup play in the development of Helma as a character?
Yeah, she actually got awarded in Sweden for makeup, and I congratulate her because she did an amazing job of subtly aging these characters, and how she did that. I never seen anyone do it that way. It was awfully subtle. We didn't really want to put too many dates or years on the screen. It's a Torah plays from 18 to 50, 55. And the aging is very subtle. I think she did a lot of glue, and she glued, what did she
Yeah,
do?
she glued around our eyes. She had some magic glue that sort of created that wrinkly thing, and she had such a light touch, which I think was amazing. And
she was terrified about doing something that looked theatrical and dusty.
Yeah. No.
So we liked her.
Thank you for pointing that out. Egle was amazing to work with. So, yeah.
Hi. So I also have Swedish roots, and great-grandfather in the 1880s came over here. So part of what I was looking at was just the lifestyle there, and it seemed that the lighting inside, the darkness, the candles, the globes, all that light painting was just wonderful. How did that kind of support your story? How did you figure out what to do with the lighting?
I admired the natural lighting that this was on stage. So most of this was built on stage, but the lighting was big lights outside windows, so it was authentic in that sense, because they didn't add much light inside the studio sets, and they did it all from outside and just bounced stuff through windows. And we also shot in real candlelight and real oil lamp light without adding any extra light. So that's what you can do these days.
And also Katarina Nyqvist, the set designer, was amazing. She would find things that I remember from my grandmother, you know, the china, the fabrics, the wallpaper. She was extraordinarily ambitious, and she had a gang of women around her, and they were truly impressive in the way they focused on every single detail, and they found the real deal for almost everything.
I should point out that the 10 big ones, large ones, as they're called, they're exactly copied. Every little wrinkle is copied by these amazing set painters. And they started with a photograph, and they added oil paint to it and wrinkles, and so it's an exact copy. They're scarily similar.
I have two questions. One is very mundane. I assume the eggs were the making of tempera paint. And the second question is, Helma seems to fall down a lot. Is that a directorial choice, or is that part of the documentary evidence about her?
I couldn't hear.
The first, I couldn't hear. Sorry, I don't know what.
The first one was eggs, assuming that was temper paint that she was making
Yeah.
with the eggs, yes. And Helma seems to fall down a lot. Was that historically accurate, or was that something you...
Actually, it's historically accurate that she fell down from a bus and
From a tram.
From a tram, and hurt her head. Which, and why I said a bus, I think one of our major theater directors in Sweden had the same kind of accident, that he fell from a bus. But that's what happened to Helma, and she got such, you know, she was damaged so much. Her injuries were so bad, so that took her life.
Yep. Right up here in the back of the balcony.
Nosebleed section, hi. First of all, thank you so much for making this film. It was incredibly inspiring. I had no idea what to expect when I came in, and I was so moved by this person and the way you both told the story. I love that it was your family, because I think she had such a connection with her family, good and bad it seems, but it's lovely that you and your daughter played the same role and that you directed it. I'm a filmmaker, and what I really took from it was the part about, you know, not letting someone judge your work and stop you, because I think we all as filmmakers have that moment where we're not sure if our work is good enough. So that's what I'll take with me. I was wondering, when did you come across this story in the very first moment, and then how long from that moment to writing it to today? How long has it taken you to do this?
From your mention of this painter till finished film, I think 4 years off and on. And a lot of that time was looking for money in Sweden to make the film until Viaplay, a Swedish company, helped us. And I was lucky to have a family that spoke both English and Swedish. So, and you could tell from Tora's performance that she's fluent in American, but she does an English accent here, yes. Vad var frågan?
Hur lång tid? Jag tror
4 years.
Question right in front.
Thank you both so much. That was a beautiful tapestry of film, and I really loved the dream sequence where she was coming up from the water. That was, like, for me, like just cinematic gold. So thank you, and I'm a huge Polish wedding fan, huge chocolate fan. I'm so thrilled that you're both here. And I wanted to say, I think you really got it right with the little, any sequence where you had the dead communicating with the living, especially when the souls were leaving the bodies as well. That's really accurate. I know a lot of people who've had that precise experience, so thank you for your depiction that way.
Oh, good. It's fascinating, the research that I'm doing. I keep doing research on Helma and spiritual things and human consciousness and the UFOs. It's all connected. I'm going to get back to that one day.
I'm making my way over to this side of the theater. Cindy?
Thank you again, as everyone has said, quite a spectacular and singular film. It sounds like you live in New York, and I'm wondering if you did see the exhibition that was at the Guggenheim that made such a difference in how we perceive this woman.
Yes, I was there to film it with my own camera. We couldn't use that material because we hadn't got sign-offs on paper from all the people we showed. So we could have been sued if we showed it. So we used archive material and superimposed extras from other that were shot on a green screen. So, but we were there, and it was 600,000 visitors, and that's where really cemented her world fame, that exhibition. And the fact that it's exactly what she drew, the temple, the spiral-shaped temple that she dreamt up already in her 20s, and that then Franklin Lloyd Wright drew, and they built it in '59. And it's just amazing that it's there, and what she wanted to, her success happened in that temple that she had imagined already 50 years before it was built.
And the drawing that Helma made it's like a blueprint of the drawing of the Guggenheim Museum. And to see all these younger and older and everyone flocking around her paintings and getting it and like seeing, and people who stood, and they stood for hours in front of one painting, and to see the what it was called, the exhibition, Paintings for the Future, and alluding to what you said and what you said, her faith that was so strong that there is a future and they're gonna get it. So she just, because it's almost imaginable how she kept going. And she didn't have money, she wasn't, she had her women that helped her, and Anna, who was wealthy, but her faith in us, that we would see what she saw, and that she had someone. It's like, I sometimes think of a message in a bottle, that takes so much faith to put something important and then throw it in the ocean in a bottle. It's like, yeah, that's likely that someone is gonna pick that up and read it and get it, but that's almost, her faith was so strong, and that's extremely moving and extremely inspiring to me.
She was a medium, a solid medium. She could heal people with her hands. Vad fan heter det på engelska? Hand healing, yes. Yeah. So she must have seen that temple and seen her future and predicted it, because her confidence is just inhumanly strong. If she had known, she must have seen her own success.
We have time for one more question, and then we've got something to present to you.
I was fascinated by the juxtaposition of the science and art, the consciousness and reality, subjective and objective, and you continue bouncing back and forth. I'm a horse owner, and that horse scene, I was just wondering to what degree that was kind of necessary. And I mean, that was an ultimate of going after that pure science, not really art, just if they had good photography, you just take a picture of it. But would you like to comment on that horse scene and why that was so necessary?
She actually made some extra money by going to this veterinary institute to make drawings of horses, and they were being what's that English word? So all this is authentic. There's a book that has all these drawings of Helma's close-ups of parts of horses and inälvor. What's that?
Intestinals.
Intestines.
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 But I'm with you. I hate to see a fly be touched on screen or in live. I'm so.
All a fake.
Yeah. But I think it was important that, and I'm glad we brought that up to her, that she was so scientific and so creative. And I think it's such an, we need to, she was an outsider. She was extremely clever, extremely scientific. And I think we need to watch and and look for the weird ones, the way she was, you know, because they have something going on a lot of the times, and that's what Helma was. And her being so scientific in those days, when girls were, you know, they were supposed to have tea or, you know, not. I think that's why it was important that that scene was in it where, you know, you show her being so like, she forgets everything because the science in it that she then tries to portray.
These were wonderful days. Religion and science walked hand in hand. There was no watershed in between. And the theosophists were so right already over 100 years ago. They had so many good points. So I continue to study them, and it's fascinating to read up on reincarnation and the human spirit in general and the human mind. It's all there in early theosophists' writing.
Well, clearly this audience loved your film because it's way past Sedona's bedtime and they're still here. We are very excited, and I'd like to give out a couple of awards right now, and I'm going to apologize for one thing. Our two leads in Helma were supposed to each get an award. Tora couldn't be here. She's tied up in New York. She was supposed to be joining us. But in my overzealousness today to take more things out of my car than I thought, one of the boxes went flying, and that was Tora's award. So we're going to be sending Tora an award, but for Outstanding Actress for both Helmas. Tora Hallström and Lena Olin will be taking home our Outstanding Actress Award. And this for your body of work, but tonight. Extraordinary, 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 really extraordinary. All of your career. And not only is she beautiful and talented, ladies, check out her boots when she's out on the red carpet. These are the greatest boots you'll ever see. And then I would like to honor Mr. Lasse Hallström with our Outstanding Lifetime Achievement Award for Outstanding Director. I have to go back to my Vanna White over here. You have got such an incredible body of work. We just showed your ABBA film in our, I think it was the 50th anniversary, right? 70 or close, 45th anniversary, something like that. We had it in the Mary Fisher Theater just last April, and it sold out all the shows that we had. And of course, you know, we're all fans of 100-Foot Journey, Hachi, What's Eating Gilbert Grape, all of those. Chocolat, of course, for both of you. And I just can't think of a better, more deserving person. So our 2023 Lifetime Achievement Award presented to Lasse Hallström, Outstanding Director, in honor of your passion and dedication to cinema and your commitment to the art of filmmaking, in recognition of your outstanding career of bringing memorable movie moments to life on screen, and in celebration of your talent behind the camera and your devotion to making films that make a difference. Thank you for sharing your passion with us and the world. Lasse Hallström, ladies and gentlemen. Lasse Hallström and Lena Olin, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here. They will be outside on the red carpet. Enjoy Johnny Messina and Candace and the wonderful reception in honor of all of Lasse's films. Visit the stations. Thank you so much.
Honored. Thank you so much. I actually got a Lifetime Achievement Award 20 years ago. Didn't feel right at the time. I survived that one, and I'm very happy to have been able to pick this one up. Thank you very much. This feels more appropriate.
Congratulations. You guys did great.